Good evening, viewers. Welcome to a sporty session of Dr. Kamini Rao's Master Class. At some point in our lives, we feel like giving up, and at other times, most crucially, we tend to give up right before we are about to make that huge breakthrough. We perhaps don't realize that there is countless number of possibilities for each being. Every champion once a contender that refused to give up. India's long and illustrious past in athletics has seen many legendary figures who have made the nation proud. Well, yes, today we have one such fabulous athlete with us who is known not only for her distinguished sporting career but also for her glamorous appearance on and off the track and leading her way into Tollywood. You can do anything as long as you have the passion, and who better can place it than our guest today. A soul full of sunshine. Here's presenting to you the glamour girl of Indian athletics. Welcome, Ashwini, to this show. My viewers are going to love all the conversation I'm going to have with you today, because you're a bundle of knowledge with a lot of athletics in it and glamour. And what more combination can my viewers ask? Let's get along with this, and let me ask you this question, because I remember seeing you on this field, particularly in Kantirava Stadium where you used to run. You were the only person, I think, contemporary times, where you used to be very conscientious as to how you used to dress, because even though we did not have any color television during that time, even in the black and white television, you were very conscious. I must dress like this, I must walk like this, I must talk like this. I mean, you really had that oof character, to the extent that they called you the Indian FloJo. How did that feel?
Thank you for having me, Dr. Kamini Rao. It's been an honor and pleasure to actually meet you in person. I don't think consciously when I started out in athletics as an 8-year-old child, did the things that you just told your viewers. But I think it was very important for me, even as a young child. I remember way back when I was little, and in Calcutta where my dad used to work, so there used to be a colony school called Bal Sadan. I still remember, if I'm on the field, I had to beat the boys, even though I was little. And I think that kind of drive was there as a young child, who also wanted to just explode at any given time. And I think it was also my upbringing. I wanted to stand out, to be different from the rest of the crowd, and to be able to actually perform better under those circumstances. It gave me a lot of confidence.
And also the fact that you were in Kolkata, and the fact that you also have a sibling, a sister, and both of you were in athletics. It just is by chance that you got into athletics. So you really didn't think of being a kind of an athletic, so to say. It was by chance. Is that
Absolutely. In hindsight, if I go back, and my mother used to always say, Ashwini means a horse. The nakshatra, or so it says you were meant to run. Probably it stands true. My parents didn't come from a sporting background, though they are Cougs, and they say the Kodavas are either born with a gun or with a hockey stick. So the blood, the sporting blood was always there, the spirit of sport was always there. But as a young child, growing up in Calcutta, because my dad used to work for Birlas then, would go on months together lockdowns, in the early 70s. So my parents decided that my mother and my sister and myself, my older sister Pushpa and myself, moved to Bangalore to basically pursue an education, not knowing about sport, nothing. Basically to get a good convent education is what they were looking at, because my sister was already, since she was older to me, she was already in the Good Shepherd convent in Calcutta. So we came down to Bangalore to pursue an education, but happened to stay with cousins, with an extended family, just near Kamini Rao Stadium.
Ah, okay.
Which was like par 3 in golf, you can just walk up and then. So my mother was a strict disciplinarian, and she would, after school, I think that it's an interesting story for viewers to know. My sister got her admission in Good Shepherd in Sacred Hearts, and I didn't get. I could speak no other language other than Bangla as a young kid. So when my mother would go every day begging the principal, Sister Joan, to say that, please give my second daughter, for grade 2. And every single day she would take me along to say that. And then the Calcutta schools were Jan to Jan, and in Bangalore it was March. The academic year was different here. So finally, after 15 or 20 days after my sister got in, one of the child who was in the army, her parents were in the army, got transferred, and that's how I got my seat. And I would rattle off in Bangla to my teachers, to my friends, because I didn't know any other language. But that was, I think, it has been the kind of determination my mother showed at that point. Say, you come back from school, you will definitely go to a convent, but after school you will play in the field, not on the street. And that's how the journey went. So we would walk with our little Pomeranian dog, holding both my mom's hands, and then walk across to Kamini Rao Stadium, and that's my journey, how it started.
Yeah, but then when you went to Kamini Rao Stadium, you had to be bribed to run. So what was that bribe that you got?
No, my sister would never like to run. She was the lazy one out of the group of kids that were there at that point in time, 9, 10, 11. And she would get her Amar Chitra Kathas and sit in the corner of the stadium and read her books. And Mohinder Singh Gill was the coach then, and he saw a group of kids, so he was training the India's great stars at that time, A.P. Ramaswamy, David Premnath and all that. And he would say, हर एक राउंड के लिए एक न्यूट्रिन चॉकलेट आपके लिए, that 5 paisa न्यूट्रिन, those days,
न्यूट्रिन and Paris.
So it was like a great boost for us, and I would land up correcting the most number of chocolates even at that time. So it was just for fun, and I think the chocolates turned out to be certificates and medals, and it became motivation.
So that's good. So somewhere along the line, even a nutrient toffee can be a motivation.
Absolutely.
So
it's
really
the way you look at it.
Absolutely. So given that you had this in your blood, and it just was a catalyst to get you to this thing, and that really got you running. It was almost like, bhag, Milkha Singh bhag, okay, and you never stopped bhagging. That's what happened. So I think, in a way, it's everything sort of comes together, and you went onto this thing, and getting into the Good Shepherd School, the Sacred Hearts, for example. And those days there used to be a stiff competition between Bishop Cottons, Baldwins, and Sacred Hearts, etc. And I was always, looking at this stiff competition kind of this thing. And you said you came from a very middle class family which couldn't really afford. And Sacred Hearts must have played a very important, role in your shaping your sport career, because these convent schools do an all-round development rather than most of the other Indian schools. They would only focus on studies. So did they play an important role in your fees and, encouraging you in your sports?
I did, and I also think at that point in time, most of the convents back in the 70s had Irish nuns, Scottish nuns. We've all grown up, with those kind of nuns who knew the importance of sport for every child. It's not that everybody looks at you as an international athlete or you have to achieve it, but it's part of your lifestyle and part of your curriculum. And I think so I owe it to my school. I'm a product of a school game, a very robust school games, because back then the Bangalore School Championship was like the Olympic Games. Absolutely. We didn't have school buses then. So Sacred Hearts would walk, in their red and white uniform, Bishop Cottons in their
Cottons in
green,
greens.
Baldwins in their blue, and we all merged near Woodlands Hotel.
Yes.
And Francis Xavier's, they all would come from the other end and all merge at a point and walk into the contiguous stadium. It was a great setting for a young child to grow up in. And I also think at that point in time, what happens is, our principal took so much interest, all principals. We had cheerleaders.
Yes.
So those who weren't part of the team, 7th, 8th, 9th graders, would be sitting in the stadium, which was designated places year on. This is for Baldwin's, this is for Sacred Hearts, this is for Francis Xavier. It was all categorized every year. And they would be the cheerleaders with teachers. Today when I conduct an event, I have to beg principals to field a team. It's so unfortunate.
I know.
It's so unfortunate. So I grew up in a setting that was walking. People would watch. Spectators would come and walk, walking with us into the stadium. What is happening in the stadium?
Yes. It makes you feel so nice. Thankfully, there was not that much traffic though.
There was no traffic. So we had to walk. And it was beautiful. Bangalore was beautiful then.
Absolutely.
So that's the environment. And I think as I started performing, my first spikes was given by my PT teacher.
Oh, that was
God
lovely.
bless her. I mean, she's no longer, she just passed away a couple of months back. But she was from Ceylon, Sri Lanka then. And when she went back on a holiday, she brought both my sister and myself the first pair of spikes. Because we were running bare feet and the canvas shoes, the white canvas shoes, the Bata shoes is what we had then. That was the race we ran. So without them, my journey would not have been complete. Yeah.
And it was so thoughtful of them, They would not just come and say something. They'd make sure the size is right, and then they'd come and give it to you, and you would cherish them.
And it came at a right point. It came at a right point. Even my 10th standard exams, I was in one of the camps, Indian camps. My commerce teacher actually helped me do the entire project for the ICSE board exams. That was the kind of concern. My math teacher, Dorothy, ma'am would say, you've now missed so many classes, come home for tuition. She would take the St. Joseph's boys and, all for tuition. And I would go and she'd make biryani and fruits and keep it for me. And there's no tuition. I would just go there. I mean, that's the kind of love and affection they had towards me, and which really helped me along this.
And the kind of bonding that you get with them is amazing.
Absolutely.
That you still remember them. There are teachers even today that I see that are there, but they are very few and far between. Absolutely. That you can see, it's become so commercial at the moment. Then going on, as I see right now, that you continued with your career as far as athletics is concerned, and then you got into Mount Kamini College, and at every stage you still went on with your athletics. Those days athletics was not actually considered a very fruitful profession as such, and you had to take time out doing it along with something else, because it was not considered a profession like today. Where you have sponsorship and you have a whole lot of other things. So even if you did go for any kind of a camp or any representation, you will have so many managers with you who travel much better than yourselves. You'll be in the unreserved compartments, etc. But for the passion and the love of sport, you people go in unreserved compartments, and then you say that you're representing the country. It doesn't matter, even if you're in an unreserved compartment, you would still go and do it. How were you feeling at that time?
I think we all came in an era where we really didn't look at financial gains. It was, for me, I think it was a way to get out of the kind of environment at home, financial environment at home. But it also was, I think deep down, I feel that I made a choice early on in life to pursue athletics, irrespective of the end result. Because I started winning as a young child. I started dreaming big as a young child, because for any athlete, being at the Olympic Games is the ultimate dream. And in India, it wasn't that easy to climb that ladder. I've had great people who have guided me throughout, my various coaches, my teachers, I never attended Mount Carmel as such. I still remember I came back after an Asian Games camp and Mrs. Revati, my political science teacher, said, "Your name is not in the register." I said, "I don't know, you ask Puama because I'm part of the college." I came and just did my examination. Sister Genevieve was so sweet because, so that's the kind of encouragement we all got. Today it's a sea change, but I never thought of getting, we would win an Asian medal or any kind of medal and we would get UTIs back then from the government, which matured, some of them matured post my retirement. So money wasn't the medal. As long as I came back home with a medal, I was happy.
That's true, but every medal sort of edges you to do more and more, isn't it? And how does what are the interesting events of these kind of medals? What are the stories behind it?
There's been a lot of learning. I think the number one is finding that interest for everybody. Everybody says, must have passion, but what exactly is passion? If you have the interest, passion follows. So unless you find what interests you the most, and then once you are interested, the passion of doing well at every point. And I feel every step should be a challenge and should be attempted with 100%. To reach the ultimate goal, you can't really go directly to the Olympics, but you have to climb small ladders. And how much importance you give to those small steps is very important. So for me, whatever I wanted to do, I always had a mindset. 80s, I would just come back home happy with a medal. If Usha was on the track, anyway, I'm coming second to her. So it was always that, as long as I came back. But it was only when I met Dr. Rupan Das, a sports psychologist who had come down from the US, and he was watching me train in the stadium, and he says, "Ashwini, can I just speak with you for 5 minutes after your training?" And I said, "Sure." And he just said, "Would you like to do a mind training right now?" I don't know if you've seen Country River Stadium then. Yes. It was a cinder track with a velodrome.
Yes.
So even the cyclists would be training around there. So I said, "Sure." And he just made me lie down, and he took me through a session of mind training. And that actually changed my entire perspective, my approach to sport. Because everything then was mind over matter.
Excellent.
It wasn't about, coming second or third. It just didn't matter. I didn't even look at Usha as my competitor or Shiny as my competitor. It was purely my target that I was looking at. It was working on that mentally, and I realized that the mental aspect for anybody to approach that goal is very important, and you need to train for that. So I think that really led me to achieving much higher levels of competition.
So it's almost like how Arjuna was actually hitting the eye of the fish. So he was not looking at the fish or the bowl or that circulating kind of this thing. So when they asked, "What do you see?" he says, "The eye." And so that's what the coach actually told you.
Yes, it's just the finish line and the target that you have set.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's great. So till the National Open meet of 1990, that just changed. Now, how was that feeling when you actually beat PT Usha and your timing was really good?
I think I vividly remember that race, we were all on the blocks. I remember Reeth, I excited Reeth and my coach at the end of the track. There were a whole lot of press at the finish line. And I still remember, I think I was wearing something in pink and purple, I'm not too sure, one-piece suit or something like that. And I ran, and at the last 30 minutes, I can see Reeth jumping and said, "Come on, Ashwini, come on, Ashwini." I had no idea. I could see Usha next to me, and we just pipped, and I pipped at the finish line a fraction of a second ahead of her. And it was, people went crazy because they didn't, it was like a shock even for the press, for the officials, to see that somebody who was unbeatable. I mean, Usha was the finest athlete Asia ever produced. She was the most, I think, for me in my journey, she was right on top at that. And to beat somebody like her, of course they said the first one was a fluke, and then subsequently we had another championship. But I think that was a fantastic race. I can still see it. It changed my life. It changed me as a person.
It's almost like the Nike, this thing, just do it.
Just do it. Yes. So I owe that for my mind training, absolutely.
So do you believe that that one thing in your life just told you that you just had what it takes to be a champion?
Absolutely. Because every time they said, oh, you're shorter than Usha, your muscles are not as fibrous. I was a very powerful runner, so there are different techniques of running. And it doesn't matter whether you're short, tall, dark. I think how you approach what you want to do. And that approach is very important. To get that confidence, to be able to see yourself as the one who can actually perform.
But did you tell yourself, or did the press then sort of glamorize you and say that not only glamour, but also a champion?
No, I think the approach to that race was different for me. As I said, Dr. Rupan would take me through sessions and sessions of mind training. The race in your mind 1,000 times on the track with your competitors and the finish line and the target that you set. So the preparation was more than my physical preparation.
No, the mental preparation was there though.
So I'm saying that helped me to forget the rest and actually be able to achieve the impossible at that point in time.
But is it at that time they compared you to FloJo?
Yeah, I was always compared. My sister was on an athletic scholarship in Arkansas University. She was a silver medalist at the World Championship in '86. So she went on an athletics, and she would send me these gears, the tights and the colorful leggings and all that. And I was very comfortable wearing it, though people would look at me and say, God, where do you look? You're so flashy or this. But I always felt confident standing out amongst that crowd.
What about this barefoot running that you were thinking about and doing?
As a young kid, we didn't have shoes. The Bata shoes would always have holes there, and then you put rubber bands on your socks to hold it up. We've all grown up like this, because we couldn't afford another new pair of socks. So it was barefoot running was easier than...
Imagine viewers would have thought that was a fancy thing to run barefoot.
Well, today Milind Soman has promoted, barefoot running everywhere, but I still don't.
You don't think barefoot running is good?
I don't.
You still think that,
I don't think. I think it's each one's mindset on how they, feel comfortable with, but I'm not comfortable. I can walk around barefoot everywhere, but I can't run. I need my shoes to run.
You still feel that is important. Now, going across to the other side, in your biographical film, titled Ashwini, how do you think that has portrayed you?
Years of being on the track and achieving whatever little I achieved didn't give me that kind of adulation that I received in my first film. The kind of people that, for me, film was something that I never even dreamt of. I was never on stage to do acting even in school, even once. Other than being the sports captain, doing my job as a sports captain, but never. And I would, in fact, when Ramaji Rao came down, we were in Delhi, and he and Mr. Mauli came down. They were sitting and just watching me run in the stadium. I think we were preparing for the Asian Games at that time, and so after training, they said, there's somebody who's waiting to meet you. So I just went and talked to them, and in 5 minutes said, we're looking at doing a film. We're not sure whether it's cricket or athletics, but we'd like you to be in the film. And I just said no, and I walked out with my bag because I didn't want to hear anything more than that. I said, I've never done films. I don't want to do it. And that was in Telugu, which I didn't know at all. I said, no way, I'm not doing it. But they were so smart because they had already made up their mind that this is girl, we are going to get her somehow. And they actually shot all the live footage of me beating Usha at the Nehru Stadium without permission. I had no clue that they had taken all my live shots of the race. And then they were relentless. And they said, just hear us out for half an hour. heard about the story and I said, okay, it's more, you know, how movies are, and I'm not a movie person at all. I hardly go for movies because in our sporting career, you don't have time to go. I've never been, you know, bunked college because we're never in college. So we were so all those life I have missed. It really didn't. But God's grace, I said, I'll give you 40 days to finish my part of the shooting, because then I have after the Asian Games, I gave them 40 days before I resumed my training again. And in that 40 days, they finished my scene. And my first scene was running, of course.